Hey, LifePoint family, and thank you so much for joining us for 21 Days of Prayer. My name is Maria Guy, and I will be talking to you today about being in God's presence. In this fast-paced and chaotic world we live in, it is easy to become distracted by the demands of daily life and can be challenging to stay focused on what truly matters. In our lives, we often find ourselves in dry seasons, feeling spiritually depleted and distant from God. As believers, our ultimate desire should be to seek and experience the presence of God in our lives. Our souls have a longing for something more. We should yearn for the intimate presence of our Heavenly Father. Throughout the Bible, we find numerous examples of individuals who desired God's presence. Two Psalms, Psalm 63 and 84, beautifully express the deep yearning for God's presence. These passages serve as a reminder for us of the importance of seeking God above all else, finding our rest and fulfillment in His presence. The psalmist David in Psalm 63 expresses thirst for God. In verse 1, it says, "You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you, I thirst for you, my whole being longs for you." In a dry and parched land where there is no water, he describes God as his God, acknowledging a personal and intimate relationship with him. David's soul longs for God as though he were in a dry and weary land, where water is scarce. Just as water quenches our physical thirst, God's presence nourishes our souls, reviving us and satisfying us. This intense longing for God's presence reveals an essential truth. We were designed to be in fellowship with our Creator. Continuing in Psalm 63, David expresses his determination to seek God in the sanctuary. He recognizes that the place of worship is where he can encounter God's glory. Our hearts should echo David's declaration in verse 2. "I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory." Nothing in this world can compare to the satisfaction and fulfillment that comes from being in the presence of God. When we understand this truth, we become more intentional about seeking Him, recognizing that our longing for His presence is the key to a fulfilled and meaningful life. Reflecting on this psalm, we are reminded of our dependence on God. We are designed to crave His presence, and without it, we find ourselves spiritually parched. In Psalm 84, the psalmist expresses a deep desire to be near the dwelling place of the Lord, where His presence is tangibly experienced. The writer goes on to describe the joy of those who set their hearts on journeying toward God's house. This psalm reminds us that the journey towards God's house and God's presence is as significant as the destination. As we seek God with all our hearts, we experience His faithfulness, strength, and grace along the way. Just like the pilgrims who found refreshing springs, even in the dry valleys, we find God's grace sustaining us through life's challenges. Verse 10 of Psalm 84 says, "Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of God than dwell in the tents of the wicked." This psalmist passionately expresses his willingness to serve in the lowest position within God's house, rather than enjoying temporary pleasure in the tents of the wicked. This powerful statement emphasizes the incomparable value of God's presence. It encourages us to prioritize spending time with God above anything else, recognizing that His presence brings lasting joy and contentment. Do we yearn for God as passionately as the psalmist did? Are we willing to set aside time and effort to be in His presence? Do we treasure our time with God more than anything else? It's not about the number of days we spend in His presence, but the depth of our intimacy with Him. In our society, we often try to fill the void in our hearts with various pursuits, success, possessions, relationships, and even entertainment. While these things can bring temporary satisfaction, they can never truly satisfy longing within us. Only God's presence can fill the void in our souls and bring true contentment. Our journey to God's presence may involve facing trials, challenges, and even dry seasons. But as we keep our hearts set on Him, we will find that our strength is renewed. Let us, like the psalmist, continually seek God's presence with passionate hearts through prayer, worship, and the study of His Word. Let us draw near to God, knowing that in His presence we find strength, joy, and peace that surpasses all understandings. The more we seek Him, the more we reflect His character. We become more loving, patient, and compassionate, embodying the very essence of Christ. As we journey through life, may our hearts be set on God, moving towards God's dwelling place, eagerly anticipating the fulfillment of His presence, both now and for all eternity. May the longing for God's presence be the anchor that guides your lives, leading you closer to Him with each passing day. LifePoint family, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful and blessed week.